Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Remember, if you love film, gaming, or television content, please consider clicking that subscribe button because today I'm going to be diving in full spoiler reviews for Succession, starting with Season 1. So, let's get into it. I know I am very late to the party on this, but I have just watched the entirety of this critically acclaimed show that has been an awards darling for the past few years. As we all know, if you are familiar with the show, Succession follows the Roy family, who are based off very powerful families today, with the closest comparison being the Murdoch family. Now, just a general summary of the show. There is Logan Roy, who is the CEO, and he is declining in health and getting older, and the kids are conflicted with each other because they all want to take that top spot. Honestly, I have resisted this show for quite some time because when things get hyped up to the point where everyone's saying that this is the greatest TV show of all time, I just have a little bit of resistance there because those are practically impossible standards to live up to. And to be honest, I did not think that Succession would be able to do that. But I got stuck into the first season, and to be honest, initially I wasn't really seeing the greatness that a lot of people were saying about this show for a good half of this season. However, I do think the pilot episode sets a good impression. It's just the next couple that really wear on you quite a bit. The pilot episode felt like it covered an entire season of television in one episode, and I have to credit Adam McKay for directing that first episode. He does set up stylistically how this show will look pretty much for the duration of Succession, which I enjoy. He utilizes a lot of these zooms in an almost handheld type of way to really put you in the room with these characters. He employs a similar style in some of his films like The Big Short and most recently Don't Look Up, but I think this is where it's used the most effectively. It gives you a look into the power this family has, as well as the dynamics that are currently present. I honestly really enjoyed that pilot, and it really put me on board to watch a few more episodes. So I did, and I wasn't given too much to enjoy, to be honest with you. I think this show is at its weakest by far in these first 4 or so episodes. I think that I was finding really nothing in terms of these characters to connect with. I understand that we could not possibly hope to understand or relate to the decisions that these characters are making, but there needs to be something to connect to or to find compelling for this show to really click with you. You know, I don't plan on being a meth lord anytime soon, but you can connect to Walter White in some ways. You can connect to the humanity to him. And in the beginning of Succession, I really need to stress in the beginning of Succession, I wasn't finding anything that really gripped me with these characters, and it came off quite dry to begin with, and I think that's why quite a few people bail out of the show pretty early on, because I have to say, I did. I stopped watching this for a long time before I started to get back into it again. It's not until we start seeing those Shakespearean elements play out a lot more in terms of the power dynamics where this really began to draw me in. When we see Greg, who is designed to be the most relatable character by far, who doesn't come from money, try to connect with people in this family, and he's just getting used and not treated well with Tom, who is also going through the same struggle with Shiv, Kendall, Roman, and Logan. That felt fairly compelling with how it was handled, and I really love how that relationship between Tom and Greg evolves over the course of the entire show. The central family were also really starting to hook me in when Kendall decides that he wants to take the CEO role from his father and try to snake him at the board meeting was the moment I was hooked forever. See, the drama early on surrounding the 3 siblings feels like it borrows a lot from Hamlet, while the arc around Logan feels more like Macbeth, with Marcia, his wife, being kind of similar to Lady Macbeth in a way, always in his ear, and maybe not being a good influence to a character who, at his worst, can be quite unstable. As a huge fan of the story of Macbeth and that structure, I obviously love how it played out with that type of narrative in this first season. The first season plays out with this constant back and forth between Kendall, played by Jeremy Strong, who is a fantastic actor and throughout the show honestly gives career best work. To me, Kendall is the character that feels the easiest to sympathize with because his father puts him through so much hell by constantly fucking him over that he relapses on his drug addiction and falls hard into doing drugs again. He even does meth with some random people, and Roman, played by Kieran Culkin, rescues him. I do have to say on that, Roman Roy is also one of my favorite characters in this show because while the siblings and pretty much this entire family are all douchebags in some ways, they all believe that they are really good people, and it kind of borderlines on delusion a lot of the time. Kieran Culkin's excellent performance as Roman, you feel that he is somewhat self-aware of who he is and just embraces it, and I love that. The third of the main siblings is Shiv, played by Sarah Snook, who gives a phenomenal performance. She feels like she is never really taken seriously due to genuine sexism within the family and is just willing to stab her family in the back due to kind of some resentment I think that she has towards her family. She does this in this season by working politically against her family, and the way that she treats Tom, her husband, I always found so sad because you can just see that she doesn't really care too much about him, especially in this season. Anyway, everything leads to the season finale where it looks like Kendall is going to get a deal to take over Waystar, and he blows it by trying to get drugs from this waiter. They drive off and eventually they go into a lake and the waiter dies. It is a very tragic scene that permeates throughout the show as it progresses and is something that plagues this character constantly. Logan, obviously with all of his power and resources, found out what happened and managed to get the evidence removed of Kendall even being there so he doesn't get charged and his reputation doesn't get ruined. It doesn't leave Kendall any less broken, however, but the leverage that Logan uses keeps him under his wing. The storytelling is just so layered with the way it utilizes a really well written screenplay to illustrate these power dynamics and how people get leverage over one another. As we were getting into this season finale, I was starting to buy the hype, and when that finale hit, I just was dying to see more. The rough start does knock my opinion of the first season down a little bit, but ultimately it felt like it really worked itself into a place where the quality was going to remain high. I mean, there are just so many small nuances that I could go into, like how in the bachelor party episode, the shot of the family waiting outside perfectly illustrates the alignment of the characters, with Kendall kind of separated from the rest of the family because he is planning on taking over and completely ruining the structure of the company. And that episode was really a highlight of the season as a lot of these power dynamics come into play. I could also talk about how the intro every episode perfectly illustrates how Logan raised his kids, as he puts his business before them all of the time, and how even if he loves them, he kind of despises them for being raised with all of this nepotism. They haven't gone through all the struggles that he did to build Waystar into an empire, and that is why throughout the show he's kind of soft on Greg because he doesn't come from that. You also see in this season that Logan hasn't had an easy life. You see all the scratches on his back. He's obviously suffered some form of abuse and had a very hard childhood. So to see all of his kids who are really spoiled and fighting over stuff really rubs him the wrong way. The last thing that is definitely worth mentioning is just Nicholas Britell's fantastic score. Honestly, one of the best TV scores since Game of Thrones in my eyes. Overall, Succession Season 1 is a 4 out of 5 for me. After seeing every season, it is by far the weakest of the lot, but it manages to pull itself together into a very quality season of television that left me wanting more, and that's all you could really ask for in a first season. I just think a lot of the time it kind of wastes in many of the early episodes focusing on things that didn't really become too critical as we progress throughout the show. But as I said before, it manages to become just really, really compelling and honestly easy to binge watch as you watch these characters constantly backstabbing each other to get into a position of power. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Succession Season 1. This is a spoiler review for the first season, so feel free to talk spoilers for the first season in the comments below. I'll be covering every season, and honestly, I am just so excited to really get to the final season with you all, because God, that made me feel things. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.